Welcome back to the Build a Workshop series. It's quite windy today, so your audio may be a little bit muffled, but we'll just have to work around that. So last time I got this side wall completed. Now it's time to get the front wall with the opening for the double door. So let's get to it. I was doing some figuring on this to see exactly where the center was and where I had to come back from the center. So of course 7 foot is the center of 14 foot, and originally I thought 54 inches would give me 2.5 feet, but then I remembered that the other wall down here takes up 3.5 inches, so I have to come back on my 54 there. So that would be I guess roughly 50.5. So let me do that figuring real quick, and we'll start cutting some boards. My first cut with this 2x4 is going to be at 50.5 inches, and that will get the first side done of this wall. So let me go ahead and cut that now. The next cut, I am removing 60 inches from that same 10-foot board, so that this is all that's going to be left on the other side of that 10 foot. So it'll basically just have a couple of studs in there, but it'll make sense in just a minute. Let me cut that. So behind Laney here, I set the 10-foot board on top, and that will be the top board. And then this gap between here and here is 5 feet. And you can see the tape measure is close to where the middle is going to be. So now I'm going to take the speed square and mark the studs out on these boards. Okay, letting the wind die down some. A stud on the end here, one that will support the header, and then another one back here that is along the side. And I am sad to say that I forget the terminology for these, but one's like a king stud and the other one's I forget. But anyway, so studs going here, studs going here, and then here and here. Now on the other end, I'm going to do 16-inch on center and get these marked out here. So I'm going to come back 3/4 of an inch and mark the sides of where the studs will be. And then I'm going to go forward 3/4 of an inch. That way I know where those studs will go. I'm going to start here with the bottom board first. Flip that up and start screwing these boards in here. Make sure they're lined up and flush. There we go. That's better. Okay, just like the previous wall, I'm going to put 2 screws in each of these. Moving down to this little piece now, I'm going to put the outside board and the middle board, and then we'll be cutting this down for the height of the door in just a moment. So let me get this lined up on the edge. I believe I'm going to make an 80-inch tall door frame here. So this board will be supporting the header. I'm going to mark out here at 80 inches. Get this one lined up in here. Listen to that wind. I'm coming in from the inside with some 2.5-inch screws and combining these together so they won't move around. I set the frame out here to see how I was doing with things, and I realized that I was actually cutting my bottom pieces a little bit too long. So anyway, long story short, I need to cut the header boards at 62 inches and 3/4. So that will make up for my error earlier. So 62 and 3/4. If I were building this for a pre-made door, that would be a real issue, but for now, since I'm going to be making my own door, it's not going to be that tragic. I have a sheet of 1/2-inch OSB that I'm going to be using for a sandwich in the headers. And the reason for that is because 2x boards don't quite make up the same as when you turn them sideways. Anyway, I'll show you just a bit. So the 2x6s are actually 5.5 inch. So I'm going to come through here and mark that at about 5 1/4 to give myself a little bit of room in there. So I'm going to mark both sides here, and actually I only need 62 and 3/4 inch, so we measure that out this way. I'm using a board with clamps to make a guide for my saw here, and I'm just going to go down this board and cut that sandwich piece. Funny story, I was cutting that thinking, why has it got so much resistance? I didn't set the depth of the saw, and I cut about 1/4 inch out of that plywood. So, oh well, nothing that a little paint won't fix, right? But take note of how deep your saw is before you cut something like this. I do apologize for this wind. Just making a sandwich in here. And then use 3-inch screws to put these together. Now I'm going to get the header set into place, and then I'm going to use more 3-inch screws to come in from the side here and get this attached. Now it's simply a matter of lining up all of these studs and getting them screwed together. 5 more cuts before this section is done. So these have to be 35 inches. Let's cut 5 of those and we'll be ready to go. It's a good tight fit. Very nice. A little heavier than the last one, but not terrible. Oh, nice. Let's get it lined up with the edge here and start putting some screws in. I kind of like having that adhesive down first because it kind of makes things glide a little bit. So if you have to move the wall just a touch, you can just kind of glide it over. Get this side done real fast. The wind sure was howling yesterday. Well, I got in a hurry because I had to go somewhere, and I did get the wall up, but I forgot to check one thing. This last piece over here is a 1/2 inch out, so I'm going to see if I can fix that real quick before we move on. The header board was spot on 60 inches. This one though, I'm going to come down here, is right at well, almost a 1/2 inch out from where we need it to be. So I'm going to pull these screws out and try to scoot it this way, just enough so that this is 60 inches here. Let's hope that adhesive isn't too set yet. Oh man, I was afraid of that. I may have to go get an adjustment tool, aka a hammer, to pop that loose. Yeah, man, waited too long. Well, I gave it a couple taps with the hammer and there was zero movement. Apparently that extra strength liquid nails is doing its job. So I guess it'll just be, and I measured again, it's a 1/4 inch out, so we'll just live with that. My tiny house door was like 1 inch out, so we'll definitely be all right working around that. Now it's time to finish up this last bit of the wall here. So I'm going to use this scrap piece as the bottom, and then once again, like usual, I'm going to be doing 16 inch on center. So mark where that first stud goes, and then come back here and 3/4 of an inch on each side of the 16 on center. Down here, I need to cut this. Let me make sure I'm getting this squared off. So let me measure out from the full distance here. These small walls are a whole lot easier to raise, that's for sure. My neighbor got a bunch of My neighbor down here got 2 4-wheelers, and his kids have been really happy riding them around. They seem like good kids, so I think they'll be all right on them. I've got to hurry up and get this thing framed because the weather is starting to get cold at night. I think it was somewhere around 45 last night. Well, that completes the second wall. Let's take a look at what's been done. So I've got the door right in the middle, and it's actually about, what was it, 2 inches bigger than 5 foot because of that little mess up. Let's see. Now on this corner over here, I noticed that I'm going to have to tighten up that tolerance a little bit when I get a ladder up here. But it's really close. And this wall was the small secondary wall, but really it's hard to tell. Looks nice. Well, that concludes the video on framing up a wall with a double door. Next, I'm going to move over to the side wall here and get a window framed. So a little bit different than this one, but a lot of the same concepts. So thanks for watching. I'm Seth Johnson with Land House, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.